at our friends joining. So we are live now. Welcome, friends. Welcome back to Creativity is in Business. I'm your host, Monica Kang from InnovatorsBox, where we debunk what it means to be creative, how we can bring more creativity into our life, business, and as a leader. And so I'm super excited to have my friend here, Cam, all the way out right now in
Chiang Mai, Thailand.
So we were just we almost lost track of time because we were just catching up, and he was sharing about how he first started. Actually, do you want to share a little bit about why you're even there?
So I originally came out to Thailand to meet with a rehab center and, started working with them as a consultant. And then, over the course of time being here, I met a girl and, she kind of captured my heart. So I've kind of been here ever since, traveling, from here to go and do speaking gigs when, that was something you could do, and then coming back home. So it's been a home base now for about 2 years.
And Cam is skipping all the nuggets of also details of humility, because the other reason why he is able to do this is because of his dedication and passion to wanting to figure out, how do we help other people quit gaming addiction, as well as the passion of how do we help parents and educators and then those around the world treat this as a serious matter, which I know not so long ago you shared about the importance of celebrating how now, what was it, the World Health Organization acknowledged that it is a crisis that we should talk about. Is there something briefly you can touch upon for those who are newer to this topic?
So video game addiction is a topic I started speaking about in 2011, and it was really through my own personal journey. So I struggled with it growing up. I dropped out of high school. I was gaming up to 16 hours a day. I pretended to have jobs and deceive my family, and it was a way for me to kind of escape from a lot of anxiety and depression that I experienced. But eventually my situation got to a rock bottom where I actually wrote a suicide note. And it was that night when I realized, I needed to make a change. And that change began by stopping gaming. Ultimately, because I realized if I didn't stop gaming, I would never do anything else. I would just game and game and game and game. And so I decided to turn things around. And, over the course of a couple of years, I started to discover that there were thousands of other guys out there who were also struggling with this issue, mostly guys, and they were looking for support. And at the time, I just knew how to kind of build websites or kind of bring community together. And so that's what I did. And I created a website called gamequitters.com, where it's a peer support community with resources and videos and a forum for people to interact. And yeah, it's just kind of grown quite substantially since then. And like you mentioned, World Health Organization last year officially recognized what they call gaming disorder as a real mental health condition. And, that's been a huge milestone in my work. And, I'm just excited to continue to share this message out there.
Thank you for doing what you do and, sharing that with those who probably never thought about it, as well as those who have recognized now there is a solution. But we want to dig a little bit deeper into, wait, why should I even care if I'm not even addicted to that, or have never done gaming, or what does it mean for me as a leader or for my people? So we're going to take a little deeper dive into that. But, you all don't have the pleasure of knowing this amazing friend of mine. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper and go a little personal. So Cam, if you can help me dig into these spark cards so that we get to know you, pick a question and a number, and then I'll pull out a card. Yellow, orange, or blue? Oops. Are you still there? Uh-oh.
Are we back?
Yes,
I think we're back. A question and a number.
Color and a number.
A color and a number. Okay. Orange 4.
Okay, so we are going orange 4.
My mom will tell you that orange looks great on me. That's what she's always said.
Now we'll have a personal story to that. Okay, so, this, I'll be very curious to hear this too. So orange is usually our creativity cards. And it says, if you came from year 3200, so in the future, you came from the future. So 1,200 years from now, or 1,000, no, I'm doing my math a little wrong, but approximately 1,180. Okay, yeah. What would surprise you the most about the way we live today?
Oh, what surprises us the most? I, the the one that I go to is about how something like flying in an airplane, how it's designed to just be horribly uncomfortable, even though it's terrible for our body. It has a really negative impact on our health, and it's just not an enjoyable experience. Like, I think that we'll look back on a lot of ways that we didn't innovate to make things more comfortable or convenient or effective, and just question why. And that really, um, just constantly there's so many different examples of that. But I have a friend, his name's Peter, and his website called nomadlist.com, where he helps people travel. And one of the things I really respect about him is that on your profile, on your account, he has a one-click refund button. So it's like, you don't even need to email him, you don't need to contact support. If you want a refund and it's within the time that's allowed, just click the button and it's processed. And it's those sorts of things in little and big ways that I think we'll look back on.
Love it. Love it. And, talking about experience, I know that's something that you think a lot about, going back to the topics you care and that you're passionate about. But let's dive a little bit more into that. Well, as we were preparing this and I was sharing about you with the audience, one of the things you shared about is like, oh, well, like there's actually a lot of connectivity to it. And I'll be actually very curious. So even for you, like there could be many ways that you could have decided to take that mission and empower your community, or use that information and knowledge to help other people understand why this is important as a leader, as a community, and like what team or any of that you could do. But why did you find storytelling or speaking as a way that was powerful for them to even learn about the importance of it?
It comes back to understanding what your strengths are. And so my strengths are in storytelling, in speaking. It comes very naturally to me. And that I think that more than anything is a huge part of it, because I just have always kind of been able to like share my story and use that as an example to help maybe inspire other people who connect with it. And that's always been what seems to have worked. It's what began it. I originally shared my story about how I struggled with this. People connected with it. Coincidentally, that ranked very high in Google. And that's how everything kind of snowballed. And so when I look back to my early childhood and sort of the ideas of like what would I do when I was older, speaking was always one of those things. Counseling was another, but I never thought I would sit in like a counselor's office and have the couch and do that. And a lot of what I do now is very much what I kind of thought I would do when I was younger. So I think it's understanding your strengths, and other people have other strengths, and they can innovate and create products or create businesses in those ways. And for me, it's just been recognizing my strengths.
Love that. Love that. And this ties to those who have joined us before. We spoke with Melanie Spring, where she told about, it's really important to think about what our voice and stories are. And that, even while you're watching and you're thinking about, well, I'm not really sure if I have a story to share, or, I'm not a leader yet, or, remember, like leader is a term. It's not just a position. We all are leaders in our different ways. And so I hope this conversation could continue to inspire you in how you reshape that. So connecting to that, Cam, like tell me a little bit more. Why should leader really even care? What's something that we can learn about gaming? Like I play games sometimes, but I was very like aware that the world that you're in is different in the mission, and it was really informative for me. But I was curious about how you've been powerfully able to translate that learning to help other leaders to think about important lessons in life or how they lead. Tell me a little bit more what that means for you.
I think when it comes to leaders or organizations, there's a lot of different ways that gaming actually touches their lives. And I think gaming is one term. I think technology is another. But for instance, a lot of companies are full of parents, and those parents have kids, and they're struggling around this topic, and it's very stressful for them. And so, just gaming is touching the lives of people in organizations all over the world. I also think that you can look at gaming as, with the prevalence of most teenagers playing games nowadays, well, that's the future of our workforce. So your business in 5 years, in 10 years, is going to be full of people who play video games, and understanding how to make sure that it's not impacting our lives in negative ways, it's not impacting productivity in negative ways, is going to be very important. I also think games are a great way to focus on team building and really understanding a way to leverage them for better experiences. For instance, there's a game called Kind Words where you sit in a room and you write kind letters to strangers. And that could be a great exercise as a team to develop more empathy or to develop, more chemistry. And so games are also designed in a way that are very compelling and entertaining and also very profitable. And so I think there are a lot of innovation lessons that we can look at games from as well.
Tell me about the other side, about
Well,
addiction.
there are ethical implications, right? And part of the advocacy work I do is that I'm not anti-gaming, I'm not anti-tech. I love technology. I love that we're using technology for this right now. I, enjoy. I used to enjoy games, and a lot of people do. But there are ethical implications, and I think that whether it's tech or it's games, we really do, as a society, really need to have some more conversations about the way that technology works in our lives and how we can leverage that for kind of the good sides, and how we can just monitor and ideally redirect the ways that it's designed in a negative way. And I think gaming currently is a huge experiment about all of that, and it's definitely something that I'm paying a lot of attention to.
I want to tie back to something that you spoke before as you were speaking, catching up, which is the aspect of motivation. I loved that you shared about how, actually understanding gaming and addiction, it really goes down to understanding motivation, which I know for leaders and, communities, that's something that we always want to dig a little bit deeper in. I almost feel like that connects to even just your answer about the random spark question about the importance of rethinking about an experience. Can you tell me a little bit more about what are things that we should keep in mind from your insight and learning with gaming and addiction?
So understanding addiction is really about understanding that someone is motivated for a behavior for very specific reasons. When I was gaming, there were four of them. The first was to escape. The second was to connect socially. The third was to experience measurable progress. And the fourth was to feel a sense of purpose. You can think of games are specifically designed for you to always know what you need to do next, whereas life is a lot more abstract. You don't always know. And that affects your motivation levels very differently. I know this, for instance, when I wake up, during the day, and I know exactly I have a project in my mind that I need to do today, my ability to get into it and start working is a lot easier and more effective than if I wake up and I'm trying to think about, well, what do I need to do today? And so that level of certainty and purpose, I think, is huge. But it's the combination of those four needs: to escape, to connect socially, to feel progress, and to feel a sense of purpose that makes gaming very compelling. So we can think about, are we addressing people's emotional needs in our products, in our businesses, in our communities? And if someone is struggling, they're probably either they have a void in one of those needs or they're overcompensating. Escape's a good example. Games can help you escape, and there's nothing wrong with getting a break from the day. There's nothing wrong with navigating stress. But I escaped in the games for 16 hours a day, and it temporarily stopped my stress. It allowed me to escape, but it didn't fix the areas of my life that were causing a lot of that tension and friction to happen in the first place. And so really understanding, it may help you escape, but you still need to develop other coping strategies to keep it in balance and to keep it in moderation is really important.
Thank you for sharing that. And what I'm hearing is that I know, again, our audience is being innovators, leaders, individuals and students around the world who's like always trying to figure out, how do we think differently? How do we see it with a different lens? How do we have the courage to understand that these and this that doesn't connect the dots can connect? And what I'm hearing from you sharing that is just really being reminded that it's a powerful reminder that humans are hungry to make the best out of it in every moment in our lives. And whether that's through experience, escapism, for me, actually, that's like binging on Netflix. I've done that for 16 hours. And there's a clear motivation in my sense, which is like I got to finish my episodes. And I love that journey of measurement because I think that's something that we underestimate. And so even with the topic of creativity, I know I know sometimes companies for training purpose, they say like, okay, what's the measurable progress? But it's actually really not on the human psychic piece. And so it makes me wonder then, as an individual who's like, geez, what can I do to kind of almost mind hack that for myself? It sounds like if I have those four elements, yes, whether that was gaming or something else that you were addicted to, or feeling like you were overspending time, is there a way that you retranslate that into something else? Maybe you will find new satisfaction and escapism by actually just staring out the window and just daydreaming a little bit more instead of just like staring at the screen. If you're staring at the screen for a long time, are there other ways that you found it really helpful to process that? What do you think?
Exactly. So I think there's a couple elements here. The first is that your human needs are neutral. So you have a desire to escape, you have a desire to feel progress or achievement, you have a desire to feel a sense of purpose. There's nothing wrong with that. How you choose to fill those needs has a big ripple effect on your life. And so, whether that's gaming, it's doing it mindfully. If you're gaming to escape, also recognizing that whatever was stressing you still will need to be addressed and that you go back and do that. For me now to escape, I play music or I, go to the gym or have a workout, you know, things that personally I find don't cause me to escape for too long. They give me that break, but not forever. I also think another angle on this is recognizing what the gaming industry would call Bartle types, which are kind of motivational profiles. And so a simple example would be for someone who's more of an achiever, they like things like a challenge because they get to achieve it. Whereas other people may be more of like an explorer or more social. And for them, instead of challenge, they want an experiment. And so for the individual, think about how you're motivated and see if you can reframe different things in other ways, challenge or experiment. And those are two simple ways. We're developing an app for game quitters and using different kind of questionnaires to identify people's motivations and then changing the language within the app based on that. You know, as a simple example, the 90-day challenge or the 90-day experiment, because those words will have a big impact on someone's motivation and desire to participate.
I love that. In a way, it goes back to actually one of the first lessons that I share with people to understand creativity and better leadership or just being a better innovator of person that you want to be is actually you got to go deep into knowing who you are. You got to really know what you love, what bothers you. And what I'm hearing is that you actually need to know: do I prefer challenges? Do I prefer experiments? Like, and if I do, why? Why do I? And then what I makes me even wonder is then it becomes easier even as a user, as an individual, like, okay, if I'm in front of this app, oh, I don't have to split. Yes, I love challenges. I get motivated when it's competitive. Like, let me do that. Or like, no, I don't want the challenge, but I love ideating and just being out there. Let me choose and it sounds like that gives a bit of a sanity in itself, which I think is so powerful in understanding and kind of digging a little bit deeper on the importance of motivation. Is there something else that you want to add?
Yeah, I want to share this story because this story always kind of, I think, helps illustrate it for me and for other people. And it's kind of funny. But so I was living in San Diego and, I had a roommate, her name was Ellie. And I'll never forget it because we were in the kitchen and she walked in and opened the cupboard and took, a chocolate bar. And so there were like 15 chocolate bars in this cupboard. And, she took one, took the peel off, took a bite, put the peel back on, and then like went to sleep. And I remember standing there thinking like that was the craziest thing I had ever seen in my life. Because if I had 15 chocolate bars in my cupboard, I would eat them all until they were either gone or until I was physically sick to wake up the next day and to eat as many as I could after that. And so the trick for me is just don't have 15 chocolate bars in my home. I can have one, but it's actually creating that barrier where I have to go to the store and buy another one that is helpful for me to moderate. Whereas for Ellie, she's a moderator. So it's very easy for her to just have a bite and put it away. So there's kind of abstainers and there's moderators. for someone like myself who's more of an abstainer, it's easier for me to not have it than it is for me to put all this willpower into trying to keep it in moderation. Whereas other people like Ellie, it's easy for them to moderate. And so the restriction of abstaining actually creates a lot of tension and stress. So it's worse for them. So understanding who you are and how you work is so important, because for me, it would be just ineffective to try and moderate with certain behaviors. Whereas for other people, it's the opposite. It doesn't work for them to try to restrict themselves. So understanding who you are and how you're motivated is super important.
That's so powerful. And I hope you're all taking notes as you're listening to this or rewatching this, because it's something that's important for all of us. I think no matter the age or the background, and again, Innovators Box's audience is quite diverse, because there's a reason why I'm introducing you to continuing diverse friends of mine from all over the world. But it's a powerful reminder that there's implications and lessons that we continue to relearn, because habit building takes a long time. There's a reason why we have 30, 60, 90-day challenges, because you're not supposed to learn overnight. Science tried that. We're still figuring that out after 2020. So there's a reason to how human psyche works. And to add to that, I'll admit as well, I didn't expect to share this, but I used to stress eat a lot. And for me, actually, I still snack a lot. When I've been in group calls, I tell people not having snacks stresses me out, but also over snacking stresses me out. So it's a delicate balance, I'll be honest. But I remember, I think well, of course I remember this, but in high school, because I stressed ate too much, like it was a really hard time to really rethink about what I was eating, how I was staying healthy. And especially for me, having grew up some years in Korea, where I lived in the States and moved to Korea and then had to move back. In Korean cuisine, like you don't have to think about what you're eating, because vegetables and like mix of ingredients is organically in the ingredients of the dishes you eat, like probably what you're eating in Chiang Mai as well, right? You don't have to separate like, hey, where's my salad? No, like it's a mix of all of it. Like, so I never had to think about it until I like was living alone in the States, where I realized in the boarding school, I'm like, if I'm intentionally not eating salad, I'm not eating any veggies. So I had a really bad diet. I would snack a lot. And what I realized was that it was really hard to break that frame, because like how do you how do you delicate the balance of not stressing yourself out by intentionally having one chocolate bar, but being stressed if you don't have that chocolate bar, but then like, what if you can't go? And so long story short is I add this additional story to the nuance, because I found that we can change. It took a long time, maybe 20 years, but we can change. And I found that now I have tons of snack, which I'm super proud about. I am going to buy more snacks in the next few days. And I feel grateful that going back to, I didn't realize about the 4 elements of motivation, which I love about you sharing it. But I think it was that I've learned that, snacking for me is like, I like the crunchiness, I love the texture, but I love the taste. And it makes me think about how enjoyable um, eating is, but also like thinking about something that I can focus on. And I realized, ooh, so if I can escape that thought into something else, which now I'm doing all these videos, I'm having more conversations, I'm thinking about what excites me, and also that pressure of if I overconsume that, I know I'm going to stress out more of not being able to exercise. And so that outweighed my motivation of wanting to do that. And so I guess, to a long way of saying, I'm curious to hear your thoughts for somebody out there who's like, okay, like, what if I want to just have the 15 chocolate bars? What if I know I want to play these games? Like, is there a way to shift my mind in motivating that to build different habits? Because I know you have had over the years as well.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it comes down to like first just being really honest with yourself. For instance, there's a number of people in our community right now who are relapsing, during this time that they're all at home, partially because they're bored, they don't have a lot of entertainment, they're stuck inside all day, they're stressed and anxious. And also gaming is kind of like currently in the mainstream as like this really great thing to spend your time on during this time, right? And for a lot of people, yes, and for some people that's very triggering. Now, you have to be very honest about where you're at. For me, I know that playing games, just even to moderate games, takes so much of my effort that I can get the same thing I'm hoping to get out of games from playing music. But for me to turn music off after 30 minutes or 45 minutes or even 2 hours, or to pause it to, go have dinner with my girlfriend or whatever needs to occur, doesn't create the stress and tension that occurs if I'm in the middle of a game. And so understanding yourself, being honest about yourself, and making sure that you have those needs that you need to fulfill in these different ways with a number of other coping strategies, for example. I also think that it's really important to just recognize, like, what do you really want? How do you want to feel? For me, I don't really like, playing games constantly where I'm like stressed about trying to be the best. And so maybe you shift to different games. Like, for instance, I play chess. I enjoy chess. It's sort of competitive, which allows me to not be too competitive, say in business, where, then I'm just like, it's not like a good energy for me. And playing chess, whether I win or I lose, I don't really care emotionally. I try to win and I improve and I try to get better. But like at the end of the day, I have no emotional attachment to chess. And so I don't get stressed about it. So sometimes you can shift to different types of games. Instead of competitive games, play more story-based games. Play games that are more offline. Play classics like the N64 or the Super Nintendo if you can find one, where just the games are different and they don't kind of become all consuming. And so that's one simple example. You could replace games with chocolate or other things, but sometimes it's just changing the specifics of it instead of removing it completely.
Thank you for sharing that. I hope you all took a lot of notes. There was so much gem, so much connectivity. What would be a final piece of wisdom, perspective, advice you would share for all the audience out there? If they forget everything, what's the one thing that should absolutely remember to do and think about, to think differently about this?
The number one thing I want to leave people with is just be mindful of what your tech life balance is, not just in this current time, but just generally in your life. What are your policies? How do you ensure that you have a balance in your life with technology? A really easy policy to have is just taking one day a week, Sundays typically that day, and just being off technology more or severely limiting it during that day. And from a company perspective, what are your tech life balance policies? Are you ensuring that your employees have time to be able to recover from the work week and can kind of actually recover creatively and they're not just kind of on technology all the time? So, yeah, tech life balance, what's your policy individually and as an organization? And really, is that done with a lot of mindfulness? That's the one thing I will leave everybody with.
Love it. Love it. Well, Cam, thank you so, so much for sharing this. And, you know, I think it's so powerful to remember that there's truly, if we open our eyes, there's something powerful we can always learn from every single thing in the world. And whether it's gaming or addiction that you might have never thought that, no, what am I going to learn about this as a leader or like it as an individual, what that means. There's a lot of gem things. And I think, this is something that we should think about no matter, again, the age or background or what kind of work you do, because understanding motivation, understanding how tech and life balances, how we think about experiences, there's so much power into that. So thank you, Cam, so much. Again, as we wrap up, one of the things I love to share is a quote for perspective. So the quote I have for today, I want to add two because I think it's timely, which is one, this is from Steve Covey that I love. To change ourselves effectively, we first have to change our perceptions, which I think we spoke about in our conversation, right? You got to think about whether it's your chocolate eating or, gaming or anything else. How do we change your perception? You want to change ourselves. And by Oprah Winfrey, because we love Oprah, be thankful for what you have. You'll end up having more. If you concentrate on what you don't have, you will never, ever have enough. And I think that goes back to whether it's you wanting to change something, you wanting to do something in a certain way, or try something new. It's all probably here.
I love it.
How do we retrain that? Well, Cam, thank you so, so much. And thank you all for joining Creativity is in Business. I will be back again on Thursday or Friday, depending on what time zone you are on. And then we're going to talk about actually now I'm thinking about supply chain and like, okay, how do we continue to think differently in the bigger part? And we'll speak about that shortly. I forget my alarm's ringing now. This is how organic it is. So stay tuned. Thank you, Cam, very, very much. If this was in person, we'll have a little round of
Thank
applause
you.
and we will be back again. So see you soon.
Ciao.